They were never recorded in the history books, never taught, never remembered. But they happened. Somewhere between fact and fear, between the past and the impossible, they left behind only fragments and whispers. It was never supposed to be found. Whispers that never were. Some places are forgotten on purpose, tucked into valleys no roads reach, where the fog moves like it remembers. Bishop's Hollow was one such village, not on any map, not spoken of in polite conversation, but it had a rhythm, a heartbeat measured by a single man, Elias Bramhall, clockmaker, recluse, local legend. They said he could fix any timepiece, even ones that shouldn't work. His clocks never ticked loud, but people swore they could hear them breathing. Elias worked alone in a crooked shop by the old church, lit only by candles and moonlight. The walls were covered in ticking, humming, pulsing contraptions, hundreds of them. Yet none ran without his touch. Then, one autumn evening, everything stopped. The great tower clock, visible from every window in town, froze. Not at midnight, not noon, but at 6:13, a time that felt wrong. Off by just enough to raise hairs on the back of the neck. Constable Rowan Hale was the first to act. He'd known Elias for 30 years, or thought he had. That night there was no smoke from the chimney, no light from the window, and the door was ajar. Inside was silence. Not quiet, absence. Clocks were still. Even the dust in the air seemed frozen. Then he saw Elias, face down on the floor, reaching toward a workbench. Dead, but with no sign of pain. Only a look of wonder carved into his final expression. On the table lay a device no one recognized. Gears fused with bone. Tubes filled with mercury. It didn't look like a clock. It looked like a question. In his hand was a shattered pocket watch. Stopped, like everything else, at 6:13. Then the tower bell rang. Once, twice, 13 times. No one had ever heard it do that, not even Elias. People emerged from their homes. Some said the air flickered. Some heard whispers in languages they'd never learned. A child claimed she saw a second moon blink and disappear. That night, time ended at 6:13, and something older than seconds began to stir. They found him in the tower again, Elias Bramhall, the clockmaker. Still alive, barely. Sitting in silence beneath the rusted iron belly of the great gears, his lips moving, whispering to no one. They said he hadn't eaten, that he hadn't slept, only listened. Listened to the ticking, the backwards ticking. 3 days had passed since the sky tore open like silk. No storm, no thunder, just a crack across the stars, and then silence. A silence so loud it rattled the bones of the village. Cows stopped producing milk. The priest at the chapel collapsed mid-sermon, blood weeping from his ears. Every clock in Bransby Hollow began to tick in reverse. Except for Elias's, his clock never moved at all. Constable Rowan Hale had questions. He always did. He came to the tower, letter in hand, a demand from the town council. They wanted answers. The note went unanswered. So did the second, and the third. But on the fourth day, Elias spoke, to no one in particular, they say, just stood at the window and whispered, "It's correcting itself," then turned back inside. That night, a child pointed at the sky. The moon had changed. It was cracked. A jagged black scar down its center like broken glass. No one spoke of it. They just watched. In the constable's study, Elias's old journals were laid out like crime scenes. pages filled with sketches of machines shaped like vertebrae, gears modeled after insect spines, diagrams of time as a loop, a knot, a mouth. On one page the words, "To fix time, it must first break," written backward, with no ink, only ash. On the 6th day the villagers broke down the door to the Clocktower. They had torches, tools, fear in their throats. But Elias didn't fight. He didn't even move. He simply turned to them and said, "You're already inside the hour," then pointed to the ceiling. Above them, the great mechanism had changed. Some gears spun forward, others backward. Sparks fell like fireflies in a storm, and at the center of it all, a heart, not made of brass or iron, but of something that once beat. Clock hands buried deep into sinew and bone. In the crowd outside, someone watched. Not a villager. Not from Bransby Hollow. A tall figure in a black cloak. Face hidden, eyes glowing faintly gold. They did not speak. They only turned and walked away, as if they already knew what was coming next. After the tower was sealed, no one spoke Elias Bramhall's name aloud. Not in the streets, not in the chapel, not even in the tavern after dark. They called it the machine, never the thing, never what it truly was. A clock that didn't measure time, but tested it. Time passed differently after that. Bread baked in the morning was moldy by noon. Children aged days and hours, while their elders never blinked. A bird was seen flying backwards, then disappeared. Not into the sky, but into a moment. Constable Hale couldn't sleep. Not after what he'd seen in the tower, so he returned. Alone. He picked the lock, stepped into the dust, and the ticking stopped. Completely. Behind the gears, he found a door that hadn't been there before. Wooden, unmarked, but warm to the touch, as if someone had just closed it. He opened it. Inside was not a room. It was a library. No, not quite. A vault, filled with hundreds of timepieces, all frozen mid-tick. Watches, sundials, sand glasses suspended mid-fall. One stood out. A mirror. It didn't show his face. It showed a version of the clock tower. But it was on fire. The town behind it was empty. Blackened trees swayed where houses once stood. And in the doorway of the burning tower, Elias stood, smiling. Hale reached out, and the mirror cracked. Not from his touch, but from within. Hairline fractures raced across the glass, and behind the breaks, eyes. Golden eyes. Watching. Back in the village, the hour bells no longer chimed. They hummed, low, dissonant tones that made teeth ache. 3 people vanished on the same day, their shoes left behind still warm. And always, at exactly 12:07, Elias had once whispered, "You're already inside the hour." Now they were beginning to understand what he meant. The clock was not a machine. It was a doorway, and something had stepped through. The final hour was not meant to strike. It was a forbidden time, etched in no almanac, counted by no sun. And yet it came. Constable Hale stood beneath the clock tower for the last time. The village was silent. Doors bolted, candles snuffed. Only the moon, fractured and wrong, watched from above. With every step, time fought him. His watch ticked forward, then backward. The gears groaned above, ancient and alive. He was no longer climbing, he was descending into something deeper than the tower itself. The chamber of frozen time was no longer still. The hourglasses poured upward. Watches spun madly. In the center, the cracked mirror pulsed, like a heart. Elias Bramhall awaited him in the glass. No longer old, not young either, just unburdened. Hale reached toward him, not to arrest, but to understand. He saw it all, the lost child, the pact. Elias had not tried to control time, he had tried to contain it. But the hour Elias locked away was escaping. Elias gave one final whisper, "Close the hour. End the wound." Constable Hale stepped forward, not as a man of law, but as a witness to the final secret of time. The tower did not fall, it simply ceased. No dust, no ruin, no trace. Morning came. The villagers awoke, as if from a long fever dream. No one remembered the tower. No one remembered Elias, not even Hale, except a watch. Its hands locked at an impossible hour, waiting, perhaps, for time to bleed again. They say time is a river, but sometimes it's a wound.